I would love to hear how you came about being passionate about anxiety. So, what was your struggle with
Yeah.
it? How
Yeah,
it
no,
all
thank you.
came about for you?
Perfect. Thank you, Milena, for having me on today. I think it was actually perfect how we started this video because I think a lot of people get anxiety by how, and you can hear me now, right?
Yes, it's excellent.
Okay, perfect. A lot of people get anxiety about technical difficulties or doing the right thing or trying to be right in every given moment, right? And sometimes it just, life doesn't work out that way. And
Yes.
usually once we give ourselves permission, hey, it's not going to work out the way we wanted. It's okay. It's okay. And sometimes just allowing us to be okay with that already relieves that anxiety. But
Mm.
first, I'll start off with my story. So, my name is Danielle Keene Grassi. Um, I I went to school for marketing communications, and it's nothing what I'm doing now. So, in 2017, my mom passed away in 81 days due to renal cell carcinoma, which is kidney cancer, and it metastasized throughout the body.
Mm.
So at this time in my life, I was at a corporate job. I was doing well. I was doing well in sales. Everything was great. Everything was great. Nothing could rock the boat. I was here in United States, but here around the DC area, and then my mom was in Texas. So it's a good three hour flight.
Mhm.
And so when my mom was diagnosed, my world just flipped flipped upside down, and I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know how I could serve her to the best. And being an only child, it was all on me. My dad wasn't really into the picture. Everything was on my shoulders. It was the house. It was my mom, and she just got sicker and sicker and sicker. That I
Mm.
was trying to find a pill that would make her better. And then a week later, I was filling hospice paperwork out because she was dying.
Mm.
And so all of this happened in the span of 81 days. So 2 months, 3 months, and then that was it. And then I was kind of like left alone with more work I had to do, her taxes, selling her property. She had two properties I was selling, and everything else in between.
Mm.
So I had to learn for myself to really separate myself from anything that wasn't going to keep me mentally and emotionally clear going forward. And that that was a big feat
Just
in
that.
itself. It was huge, while also staying grounded with who I was, because I didn't want to be the person that didn't get over this. Of course, death isn't linear. Whoever faces death, it's not linear. It's something that is a process, and some days are better than others. I'm not the perfect one when it comes with death. Sometimes I still face it, but I do it in a way that's healthy. It's going to better me rather than destroy me. And that's what I want to talk about today, and the processes that come about that.
Beautiful. So, how old were you?
I was 25 and I'm 27 now, so that was 2 years ago.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, Natasha is saying 81 days of anxiety or
81 days
81 days of the
of her
cancer.
passing. So she
Yes,
got sick.
yes,
She
yes.
was diagnosed December 24th, 2016, and then passed March 15, 2017. So from diagnosed to death, it was 81 days. So
Mm,
it was fast.
fast,
It was
yes.
so fast that I had to figure out what I needed to do as a person while also helping her to the best of my abilities
Mm-hmm.
and not being mad at myself. This was a huge one for me to learn. Not being mad at myself if I couldn't provide and serve for her the best that I could in that given moment. Because
Mm.
there was so much going on. And for a really long time, I would get mad at myself and go, oh, Danielle, you should have done this differently. You should have prepared it in a different way. You should. And at the end of the day, it's something I can't control. I can't control how I did the situation, because what I did at that given moment was the best that I could do.
Mm-hmm. So, what I want to ask you, usually when we are in a stressful situation, there is like we handle things. So
Yeah.
were you anxious, or did you have
Yeah.
anxiety attacks at that time, or
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
it all was over, then it came after you, like all that stress
Yeah.
came back and you had to pay for it in some way? So how did that look for you? Because
That's
when we observe somebody in a really difficult situation, so my dad also passed away, and
yeah.
it was super stressful, like, but
Mm,
and like I gained some gray hairs like this overnight.
yeah. Yeah.
How much stress did I have? But I just like went through it. I was just like looking for the solutions of the problems and solutions of the problems and all of that. So and when we look and observe somebody who is in a really
Mm,
hard situation, uh, it amazes me how much we actually are strong and capable, and uh, something that maybe used to we maybe used to view as hard, we like that, do it like this, like really really
yeah.
fast.
Yeah.
So what was your experience during that? Like, how was your anxiety? What were your thoughts? Did you even realize that you were anxious, or
Mm.
what was happening inside, or did it come afterwards?
That's a beautiful question. And
Hi, hi, Aniela. Everybody's joining. Beautiful.
wonderful, wonderful. That's a beautiful question. So I was stricken with so much anxiety during the process, but I didn't realize it until after.
Mm-hmm.
However, what I did realize is that my body went through so many changes. I had one panic attack during her death process, so during those 81 days of her diagnosis,
Mm-hmm.
um, and my body felt it, but I personally didn't feel it. I lost 20 pounds, 30 pounds, and I looked sickly. Like I was just skin and bones, and that was it. During that process, I had to train myself, and I did it in an instant where I had a cognitive, logical mind and then my heart. So I wouldn't allow my heart to feel if it did not serve me in that moment. So I had to speak about to lawyers, and I had to go through a probate process, which is the
Mm-hmm.
American court system of obtaining a house and then selling it. And I had to talk to lawyers about, okay, if my mom dies before this time, this is going to be the result. If she dies after this time, this is going to be the result. And I could not allow myself to be emotional during that process. I
Mm-hmm.
only had to allow myself to think logically, because I knew these decisions, these moment decisions, would also affect my life a year, 2 years later down the line, through taxes, through anything, any financial means, right? So I myself was so stricken with anxiety, but didn't allow myself to feel it, and which hurdled right after she passed. It just, all of it came out. Everything I was suppressing just came out crazy. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember I had was just tears, because I was like, wow, I don't have a mother anymore, and I'm freaking out because I don't have that security, safety,
Yes,
or the
yes.
love from my mom. So I was very anxious during, but I didn't allow myself to feel it until after. And I was going somewhere with this. I get so passionate and so, because it really is a big thing. I remember. So I had to make sure, and I use this within my lessons now, and I wish I did this. This is one thing I wish I did before my mom passed, was mother myself.
Mm-hmm.
Mother myself and allow myself to feel mothered by me. And people go, what does that mean? I don't understand. So, mothering yourself, for your audience that are listening today and for the replay, mothering yourself is taking a moment to appreciate all your accomplishments, taking a moment to feel gratitude for yourself, taking a moment to be present, taking a moment as your mother would to fall in love with the person you are. And I do that by maybe even cooking dinner for myself, right? That's kind of a mother thing, is to
Mm-hmm.
prepare a beautiful meal. And so I might be chopping an onion or a shallot or something like that and being very present as the knife is going through the vegetable or fruit or whatever I'm preparing, right? And thanking that vegetable, even though this is so silly, it's so small, it means so much, because it's like I'm feeding myself.
Myself, yes.
This vegetable is going to nourish my body in the best that it can.
Yeah.
And so that was one way of giving back to myself. Or even doing just frivolous things, right? Going somewhere and buying yourself a nice bouquet of flowers for the week.
Mm-hmm.
Doing something that yourself you'd be like, oh, that's a waste of money. I really don't want to do that. But it's funny that sometimes our mom would do that. My mom used to do that for me. She would do maybe little frivolous things for me to bring me through the week, or writing. She would write a note for me to be prepared for the day when I was young. So I started doing that for myself, writing notes to myself,
Mm-hmm.
journaling to myself, and telling myself how proud I am to be getting to the next step in my development, to get to the next step, just to wake up and get out of bed the day after she died and go on a hike was
Mm-hmm.
huge for me. Huge.
So, how did you overcome it? Like, what did you do?
Yeah.
Where did you go first? Like, how did
Yeah.
that process, how long it took you to even
Yeah.
start the process of healing, start to address or
Yeah.
heal that anxiety or calm yourself down? How did
Yeah.
that come about?
Yeah. Well, first, I knew I needed to go through the process. So I was very aware that I had to heal myself, that no one could heal me. I had to do it for myself. And so I would say a week or two after she died, I went to grief groups, grief programs, and I noticed it it wasn't what I needed. And it might, someone watching, that's what they need. If something's happening anxiety wise or someone's passed, they might need to get something externally. But I noticed what they were going through was something different than what I was going through.
In
And
what
so I
way?
needed the sorry, in what way?
Yes.
Um, these grief groups were very spiritual, and sometimes, are not spiritual but religious, and sometimes they truthfully didn't align with me. So kind
Mm-hmm.
of what they were saying just didn't align with what I was talking about. I actually hired a coach, Johanna Gardner, to help me through the process of really reclaiming my own power and knowing myself from the inside out. And so working with someone one-on-one in order to do that helped my anxiety immensely, and
Yeah.
coming back into my own, coming back into myself. I noticed that I was giving my power away with the expectations that other people would be everything I wanted them to be. But in actuality, I was the one I needed to be. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe we give ourselves a chance and the power to know that we actually do have everything we need. We always look for external circumstances, and we get that through media is, oh, you need this to look pretty. You need this to be powerful, this to be satisfied. But in actuality, you can get all those things, but then it will only fulfill you for a short duration. So you'll need to get so much more, so many more of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I started to feel that way. I was having expectations for other people to fulfill the role of my mom, and that just wasn't possible. There was no one here that could take her place. Not that I wanted someone to take her place, but
Yes.
I needed that love, and I actually had to give it to myself. So that was the first way of knowing that I needed help and I needed to do it for myself. So the coach really helped. I started
Mm-hmm.
doing acupuncture, which really helped me get back into the body. And then when I started having this help, I started feeling a drive from within, listening to my heart, because I remember I was listening to the mind the
Yeah.
whole time, because my heart, I didn't want my heart to win. My heart died with my mom. So my heart had to arose. And as I started helping myself by doing one-on-one work with coaches, by getting acupuncture, my heart started telling me what to do next. the next step after that. And I started looking at my anxiety. This is a huge one. This is what I show all my clients and people that work with me, is that anxiety, I took it out of my body and I visualized taking it out of my body and looking at it as a science experiment, right? So we see science experiments, chemicals coming together, they're exploding or whatever. And I'm looking at other people that may or may not have given me anxiety in the past. And I don't feel their energy in my body, but I actually feel it outside in a way that if there's chemicals coming together by their energy, I
Mm-hmm.
don't get personally affected by it. It's just that science experiment. I don't get affected if chemicals come together and explode. So that's why I'm not taking it in personally if they're saying something or doing something that's going to trigger me, right? I'm taking it out of my body and examining it.
Beautiful. I love that.
Thanks.
I love that.
Thank you.
And how do you examine it?
Yeah.
So let's
Yeah.
say somebody triggers you. Let's
Yeah.
get really specific. And
Yeah.
you feel that anxiety. What kind of anxiety? What usually triggers you? Is it something mean they're saying? Is it judgment against you? Is it a look? Is it like what is actually uh, happening that triggers you? And then how do you observe it when it's outside of you? So what do you look at? Like how do you discern what is theirs, what is personal, what is not, what is maybe some kind of lesson, what they are saying, is it something inside of you? Like what do you do?
Yeah. Well, it's actually all of the above. So, really, anything that triggers me is something that has happened to me before the age of 8. So, anyone listening at now, anyone listening to the replay, any triggers that we have were actually something that happened in our past before the age of 8 that our parents or a loved one that we were really close to affected us in some way. And we were told by them, hey, this is the way we have to do it. And then we become adults and go, this is the way we have to do it. And then others around us go, no, we do it differently. And it's like, what do you mean you do it differently? This is how I was taught and raised to do. What are you talking about now? And it's just how we grow up as a society. We kind of stay in a little bubble, and then we're out in the world, and it's like, well, things are changing, things are growing, things are developing. So I've noticed with my triggers, they've all happened before the age of 8, where I was affected or influenced by either maternal or a paternal
Right.
parenting styles, and that has how it has affected me. So as I'm learning now, and as I've learned through the anxiety course that I've built up, is that I become really aware and very curious of, I'm getting a little upset right now. Is this something that has happened before the age of 8? Let me think about this. Why is this affecting me? Why is this person? There was one really good example, and not to go crazy too deep, but I had a situation happen to me where I had a great conversation with a friend, and then it went a little rocky. And instead of kind of figuring out, I'm someone to like, let's figure this out, let's get to the bottom line, she walked
Yes.
away. And I go, what do you mean? Why are you walking away? How dare you walk away? Because I'm one to like, let's fix it, let's figure it out. And by doing some work, I could actually piece it to where someone who I was in love with, who I was very affected by, walked away from me at a young age. So that situation came back in my life again.
Yes.
So I became aware of it, and instead of being mad at that other person, I was like, that's very interesting. Now, not being mad at her, what can I do to love myself even more, that if she walks away, I don't care. I don't care
Beautiful.
anymore.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's
Yes.
just by being curious, not taking it personally. And there's work that we actually go through the work. It's kind of a longer process of doing that, but going through the work of not taking it personally, right? But finding those cues and helping yourself, loving yourself so much that it doesn't matter the outcome. it doesn't matter what happens.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm also about acceptance, really
Yeah.
accepting what is, and
Yeah.
healing with love and with
Yeah.
compassion for myself and also for somebody else, because we all are like these little children who are in these
Yeah.
big bodies, and we are acting like
Yeah.
children.
Yeah.
And the time has
Yeah.
come, like, to a lot of people are
Oh.
opening up and growing up and
Yeah.
working on themselves.
Yeah.
And it's easier to be compassionate when you
Yeah.
see somebody else and you don't know what kind of life who impacted them, what happened to them, uh, how do they look at the world. It's
Yeah.
really, I have so much compassion now, uh, because I see in myself the things that, like, maybe I say that I wouldn't do, I did in a
Yeah.
certain situation.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and that's because of the hurt, and that's because of the, like, trying to protect yourself, trying to
Yeah.
shield yourself, because you are this little
Yeah.
child inside who is playing out being an adult, uh, and just learning how to actually grow up, how to heal yourself, how to mother
Yeah.
yourself, how to take
Yeah.
that responsibility back inside yourself and not expect things from others, not expect
Yeah.
things from outside of you, which
Yeah.
is kind of harsh, but actually being an adult uh, is that, like, taking
Yeah.
that responsibility, which isn't just responsibility, it's like the power, the decision, the power to create. So when people talk about responsibility and, like, self-discipline, and it's from the early ages, it's like not a good word, so
Mm.
you're like, took my childhood and now you disciplined me and now I have to grow up. So it wasn't a pleasant experience.
Yeah.
So people have, like, this really fear of responsibility, fear of taking their own life into their own hands,
Yeah.
and listening to themselves and trusting themselves that they know also inside who they are, what they want, and to start to share that, to start to open up about that, because that frees a lot of anxiety. We
Yeah.
are anxious because we are afraid what people are how they're going to react. We are afraid and anxious because we see some future events that didn't happen and probably are not going to happen, uh, in the worst possible way. But taking back that power out of the future into the now, and being able to open up and talk to people,
Yeah.
actually express yourself and talk about difficult conversations that we all have, those hearts that you, like, close down. All
Yeah.
of us have our hearts,
Mm.
and it's a way to communicate, through that heart, to connect again, to grow up again, and to collaborate, and to
Yeah.
make something out of our own lives,
Yeah.
because the weather is not going to change, the seasons are not going to change,
Mm.
the governments, are not going to change,
Yeah.
but you have to change uh, to take back that power. And I love that you said about having a coach. Was that a
Mm.
difficult decision for you? Because people who are anxious, they maybe feel ashamed, or maybe they think it's going to pass, or maybe they're not too desperate, like, to really
Mm.
solve it. So when I had my anxiety attacks and when I had my fear of public
Mm.
speaking, I was actually desperate, because I was like, I don't want to talk, like, sit with a stranger and have a blank thought
Mm.
in my mind. Like, I could see how it's going to stop me in a lot of ways. So it was like the pain was too big. So I
Yeah.
wanted to go and find a solution.
Yeah.
Um, because, like, people are afraid of coaches, and yet the coach really gets you through way faster than you could do it on yourself. So what do you think? How was that experience of like getting a coach? How did you decide what kind of coach to get, and who would you be? Like, how do you think your process of healing that anxiety would go if you have done it on yourself and by yourself?
Yeah, no, beautiful question again. I definitely had a lot of hesitancy, especially since I didn't know my coach personally, and I met her through a referral, right? And so I was very hesitant at first, but once we dived into the process, my coach was very similar to who I was. And in the same aspect where she was very logical, but she was very heart centered. So she knew how to use both sides of her brain in order to allow me to go through the feelings in a patient way, while also being able to put logic, marketing, strategy into the mix as well. And so I definitely loved her style, and now I emulate from her style. So anytime, and it was a lot faster, so much faster hiring her through this process than if I did it myself. If I did it myself, I would still be in the mix as if I was still dealing with that anxiety a year or 2 years ago. And so it brings you through that line so much faster. And as a coach myself, I've noticed people who really want to, whether they want to deal with it right away or be patient waiting for it, you have to catch them before the ego. So if there's any coaches watching this, it's definitely so important to catch those clients before their ego comes up again, right? Because the ego is going to stop you. The ego doesn't want to grow because it doesn't know if it's going to be safe on the other end of the growth,
Yeah.
which it is. Of course it is. It's just going to be another sense of who you are, right? But you're still you. So having incentives in order to work with you right here, right now, and then being able to catch them when their ego is falling apart and holding that absolute truth, holding that space for them, because the ego is always going to catch up with them. It's happened to me. It's happened to my upline coaches. I know people who've worked with me. The ego always catches up, but the coaches I've seen are so great at holding that space and saying, hey, it's okay. This is just ego. We're going to get you on that other end. We're going to get you on that other side, which is the same of what I tell my clients as well.
Beautiful. And can you talk about more about ego? What does it mean that it's going to catch
Yeah.
you?
Yeah. So ego is anything that you have to prove, justify, defend, and it's anything that you have to question. It's a right or a wrong. So your heart always knows the way. Your heart is always the truth in the center, and your heart always wants to follow the path of joy and fulfillment. But sometimes we have that path and fulfillment, and then our ego is the realistic one. And it is great to be realistic. It is beautiful to be realistic. But we're coming into an area where we no longer have to survive, but we're going into the area where we thrive, where we're thrivals. So our ego was beautiful, and it's perfect to help us. If there's a bear, we're going to not go towards the bear. We're going to go back into the car and drive safely home, right? Our ego, if there's cars crossing the street, our ego says, hey, let's wait till the crosswalk comes so we can walk across the street. So that's where ego is great in those aspects. However, if you want to jump on a beautiful live or write a beautiful post or do something that your soul, your heart wants to do, your ego will sometimes say, you know what, it's just, we can do this tomorrow. We'll just do it later. And that's where your procrastination comes in, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
I love the programs that you do. But it's anywhere where your ego's like, let's just stop for a second because I don't think we can go here. So I actually deal with a lot of women who have anxiety, and it's mainly from ego because they don't feel worthy enough they're divided into two people at the time. Their heart says yes, and their ego says,
Mm,
you're not worthy enough at this time. You don't know enough. You're too young. You're too old. You're not pretty. You're not smart enough. Sorry, we can't do it. And
mm-hmm.
it's always, that's not the case at all, especially in this new energy that we're coming through, this new world, this new ideas, this new beautiful spiritual awakening that we're coming into.
Yes.
That's not the case anymore. So the ego is perfect when we need to cross a street, but not when we need to be creative.
Mm-hmm. I love to use ego and fear uh, as a diagnosis of where to go, you know. So whenever there is resistance, whenever there is some kind of fear, whenever there is this pull that doesn't let you, I see it as like that's the way we should go. That's the way where the expansion is. That's the way, that's the piece that is missing in your life to be more of yourself, more of
Yes.
to live better and stronger and more
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah.
So I love to follow. I love to follow the ego. I love to follow the fear, because, and especially the greater it is, like that's it. Like
Yeah.
that's where your expansion is, on the other side of that fear. It's like the fear is like your border of where do you allow yourself to go. And when you break through, and when you learn to break through fear, and when you learn to break through those resistances, and you learn to deal with the difficulties so that it doesn't stop you, that's where I see the freedom actually, and the power of you going wherever you want to go, you doing whatever you want to do, knowing how to handle yourself, knowing how to be there also in the world, how to connect with other people, because a lot of people are afraid of other people. And that's a
Yeah.
big trust issue that needs to be healed.
Yeah.
That is where I love to take my clients,
Yeah.
so that they are not afraid of the fear anymore. Because usually people are afraid of the fear. They don't even go there. They're like, oh no, fear. Go to the other side where I always go, to that comfort level, to familiar. And that's not where our soul wants to go. That's not
Yeah.
where we want to, that's not where the purpose is. It's in
Yeah.
overcoming yourself and becoming something more than you were yesterday.
Yeah.
And the dreams and all of your desires are actually on the other side of the fear,
Yeah.
on the other side of the ego. So there is no way around it. There is no way here in the comfort zone to find it. So whether you decide to uh, be here and stay here, maybe not be fulfilled or not take on your life the way that you wanted or the way that you wished for it, then yes, stay here. But it's great to expand. It's great to see what you can become. And that anxiety also tells you, aha, so there is something there that I need to heal. There is something there that I need to overcome, or that I need to prepare myself for. So use it as a sign. Use it as a like, aha, interesting.
Yeah.
Let's see how I
Yeah.
can acquire a new skill, how I can overcome it. And coaches are really a great way to do that, because it's a faster way to do it.
Yeah.
There are a lot of books, there are a lot, but you need to become a student that practices everything that you see, to practice it inside of you. There are so many techniques right now for anxiety. So, but you need to give yourself that gift and give yourself that allowance of, yes, I'm going to do it because I'm doing it for myself.
I couldn't
So
agree
it's,
more. Yeah.
yes. So you
Yeah.
need to allow yourself to heal and not block
Yeah.
yourself by saying, oh, there is nothing that can be done, because
Yeah.
it can be done. All can
Yeah.
be done. Anxiety can
And
be healed,
yeah.
depression can be healed, but
Yeah.
uh, you have to make a step like to the universe so it steps back to
Correct.
you. So you
Correct.
have to be willing to do it for yourself. You have to be willing uh, to open up yourself and talk about it. And
Correct.
because then people can help you, coaches can help you.
Correct.
Okay, beautiful,
And
beautiful.
it's just coming back into the body and um, seeing where those triggers lie, kind of that investigation, right? So if you're getting a trigger at a certain time, at a certain place, with certain people, investigate that and see. And this is where the hard part is. If that's where you're getting your anxiety, what do you need to do differently? Because the outside circumstances are only going to change when you change, and that's just what you're mentioning right now. Um, so whether you need to love yourself more, whether it's your friends, maybe not hang out with them or not putting expectations on them, and maybe because you're always growing, whether you feel stuck or not feel stuck, you're always growing into who you want to be. We just want you to be that freedom based person that we know you are, right?
Yes, excellent. So do you can you share a specific tip? Or,
Hmm.
I mean, you shared already. Can you share some specific, something that maybe you wished you know back then to help you? You said about the mothering, but
Yeah.
like if somebody is in an anxiety and they just want to be normal, maybe they don't know what is
Yeah.
happening inside of them. So, for example, my anxiety attacks, they were like they came from nowhere. So it
Yeah.
was really hard for me to diagnose it, and that sudden feeling of losing control over my body, not knowing how it's going to end up. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Having those anxiety, hyperventilating, like feeling my arms really tingling, it was like, oh my God. And it drove
Yeah.
me even further. So I was afraid to go out. I was afraid if
Yeah.
I'm going to fall somewhere.
Yeah.
So it like just builds up one fear
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
another. Uh, do you have some kind of tip or trick? I remembered one really, really great also. So if you can share, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's always because it's only going to get worse and worse, and sometimes we try to push it away, push it away, push it away, push it away, and that only prolongs it because we're pushing it actually down and not being able to feel it. So once we take an opportunity to feel it, and this is where people hate, but once you feel it, it actually lets go. So
Yes.
once you're okay with it and you go, okay, you know what, I'm feeling this, whether that's through meditation, whether that's it's just come on in your body, it just wants to be recognized.
Mhm.
So if you're feeling it, feeling it, feeling it, and going, okay, you know what, I love that you're here. I love that. I love that I'm in pain right now. I love that I'm, feeling this, I'm feeling it, and I'm okay. I'm still alive. I'm still breathing, feeling this. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it. And then it will actually, there come a point where it will actually release. It'll
Mhm.
actually just dissolve and release once you feel it and you love it, you love on it. Because it's almost like a little child, right? If you were ever approached by a child at the playground and it said, I just want to be loved, you wouldn't go away, child. Go away. No,
Yeah.
you would embrace it. You would give it a hug. You would say, everything is okay. I'm here now. I'm with you. And that little pain, that fear, just wants to be witnessed and it just wants to be loved on. And once you allow it to be loved on, then it lets go. So if you
Mhm.
feel like you're in that constrictive pain of anxiety, like you're mentioning, It's just that point of releasing, being able to release it.
Yes, to
By
accept it
loving it.
fully, to be, to just
Yes.
be present in your body.
Yeah.
A lot of
Correct.
the times what we do, if we have some kind of fear and all those thoughts produce our
Yeah.
emotions and feelings, so we push it, right?
Yeah.
And we don't let ourselves even to catastrophize all the way. Because, like, okay, so what is the worst thing
Correct.
about that? This and this is going to happen. So if this happens, what is the worst thing about that? Then this will happen. And what is the worst thing about that? And we come in the end to some kind of totally ludicrous, like I'm going to end up alone. And so you can if you allow yourself to go beyond just right now and see what is actually that you are afraid of,
Correct. Yeah.
then you can see, like, uh I don't know, my husband is going to leave. Okay, so what happens? What's the worst thing about that? I'm going to be alone. Okay, so you are alone now. What is the worst thing about that? So I'm a failure. Okay, so what is the worst thing about being a failure?
Yeah.
And then you just come to that place where you said, like, ooh, just like
Yeah.
feel it, and it just releases itself. It just lets go, and it just wants your attention. It wants your love. It wants your
Correct.
presence. It doesn't want to be shut down, because if the child is shut down, it's going to only get stronger and
Yes.
louder.
Yeah.
And it's going to want more and more of your attention. And it
Correct.
sounds counterintuitive to allow that
Yeah.
sensation to be in your body. Just allow it to be.
Yeah.
Uh, then it really loosens up. So
So
I
you're
remember
flipping your
when I was,
power. Yeah.
yes, I was
Yeah.
13 years old when I had my first anxiety attacks. And
Mm.
I had this switch inside, like,
Mm.
so when I would have that anxiety attacks and I would start to breathe really, really fast, and I would be inside my head and like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, can I breathe? Can I breathe? My mom would come and she would say, okay, breathe easily. Okay, so deep breaths in, deep breaths out. And it would look like, and I would like really focus on her and try to calm myself and to start breathing more deeply, like, and more slowly, and it would stop. And that really amazed me, because
Yeah.
one time I was alone. And I remember that, like, wait a minute. If she tells me to breathe easily and I listen to her and I focus and I start to breathe easily, it passes. So
Yeah.
I tried it on myself and I was like, okay, so I can do it. Like, no biggie, no big deals. And then I would just calm myself. So I took that control back. I didn't push it. I was like, okay, I got this. I'm just going to breathe slowly. So I found a way to slow myself down and to not just listen to my thoughts, but like I was imagining my mom actually calming me down.
That's
And you can
beautiful.
use your imagination to calm yourself down. You can use your imagination to think of something that is coming to you,
Yeah.
that maybe helped you with your anxiety, that made it go less. And you always have your imagination
Yeah.
with you to come
Yeah.
back to this moment and to take
Yeah.
control of yourself. Oh, wonderful. So everybody, so nobody's here right now. Excellent, Danielle. I love this talk. Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for opening up and sharing about your experiences and sharing about your ways. Where can people find you?
Yes, you can find me through Facebook, the Danielle King Grassi. Just click the link. I have an anxiety course coming out at the end of May. And for anyone who watches this video, I will send you a special promo link So the course is $222, but you'll get a 10% discount for being
Beautiful.
one of Melena's Facebook friends. So that's where you can
Wonderful.
find me, and if you have any questions, feel free to DM, and I'll put my information below.
Excellent.
That's awesome.
So
Thank you
anybody
so
who
much.
needs something for
Yeah.
anxiety, take Danielle on this offer. The link will be below. And thank you for joining us. Thank you for being
Thank you so
here.
much for having me.
And yes, yes.
Mm.
Okay. So everybody, bye. The link is going to be
Thank you.
below.
Thank you,
Bye, dear.
everyone. Thank you, Milena. Thank you so
You're
much. Bye.
welcome.